Okay, welcome everybody to Dining with the Doctors. This is kind of an exciting kickoff tonight. And for those of you who are new to the Dining with the Doctors program, our intent was to start this program back on March 22nd with a viewing of Forks Over Knives movie. And then we were going to move into cooking classes and having different talks by different doctors who would come in. And obviously the COVID-19 put a little damper in our plans, and we kind of decided to change gears and go over Zoom and still try and get the health message out there. With everybody trying to build their immune system and stay well, we thought, you know, we want to get some basic information out there, even while we can't meet in person. So welcome virtually. Hopefully we will still meet in person. That is the idea, is to have cooking classes and live classes. But in lieu of that, until we get the go ahead, we're going to do it over Zoom and try and get some of the information to you guys out that way. You know, our mission with Dining with the Doctors is all about making our community healthier. You know, they say the word that I love, health is your greatest wealth. And for many of us, I know myself and one of the testimonies tonight, sometimes we take our health for granted until a crisis happens. And then all of a sudden we go, oh man, I thought I was healthy. I thought I was eating healthy and doing things healthy. But we realized maybe we weren't doing it to the max that we could or should. So we really wanted to get some of this education out into the community. So we encourage you to invite your friends, invite your family. We'll have different speakers every month. We'll have different topics that we're covering. Tonight is heart health, but we're hoping to also cover kidney health, diabetes, hypertension. There are so many autoimmune diseases. There are so many things with our health that people are struggling with, and we'd love your feedback for things that you would also like us to do in the future. I know some of us are busier with COVID. Some are working more, probably like our nurse, Donna Harley, who's going to speak tonight. Some maybe have been laid off, have more time on their hands. But for those that you have more time, this is a great time to dig into your health. Try and exercise more, eat right, try new recipes. Use this as a time to really, you know, build up your health, invest in yourself, because I think there's no better investment than we can make than taking care of our bodies. So excited about that. A couple parts to the meeting tonight. The first part, I'm going to kick it over to Donna Harley, who is a nurse and RN who lives here in the Valley. She works at Valley Health. Been working with heart patients for over 43 years. So she's going to talk a little bit about her experience. Then we're going to hear a testimony from Patrick Dower, who is one of our church members. He's had a health journey that he's going to share with us, which I think is very inspiring. And we also have a local heart surgeon, Dr. Anderson, who's local here in Newmarket. And he's going to give a little talk on, you know, things we can do to help prevent, so that hopefully you will not meet Dr. Anderson or Donna in person by preventing all the things they're going to talk about tonight. And then at the very end, we're going to show you a video for those of you who got meals delivered to you, a little bit about how to make the tofu meatballs that we sent to your houses. So we're excited to teach you a little bit about how to do the cooking on that perspective. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to Donna to introduce herself and a little bit about what her experience has been working with patients over the last 43 years, so that we can all learn how to better, you know, protect ourselves and keep our hearts in great condition. So thanks, Donna.
Good evening and welcome. I have been blessed over 43 years to work in many settings, including working with a cardiac surgeon, assisting in surgery, intensive care, emergency room, home health visits, and now in an anticoagulation clinic and working with cardiac rehab patients. And it is a real blessing. It's a challenge, but it's a great blessing. I want to share some things with you tonight, how to prevent cardiovascular disease. And like Tracy said, we all want excellent health. We all want to be healthy. And the good news, it's really easier to stay healthy than to recuperate after a heart attack, stroke, or a blood clot, since we may not be able to recuperate or even survive the event. I've had many patients that said, I wish I would have known about this before I had my stroke or my heart attack. So you're getting the privilege of understanding some things ahead of time. Heart disease is the #1 killer of men, women, and people in the United States and of most racial and ethnic groups in the US. One person dies every 37 seconds in the United States from cardiovascular disease. About 647,000 Americans die each year. That's even more than COVID. About 2 out of 10 deaths happen in adults less than 65 years old. My youngest patient is 21. My oldest patient is 95, and there's a lot in between. So here's some risk factors. And if you recognize your risk factors, you're less likely to have a cardiac event. High blood pressure, high blood cholesterol, and smoking are the key risk factors for heart disease. Knowing your numbers is wealth. You have to know and keep on top of them. About 47% of Americans die from at least one of these 3 risk factors, and these come from the CDC website in 2020. Several other medical conditions and lifestyle choices can also put people at risk for heart disease, like diabetes, obesity, unhealthy diet, lack of physical exercise, and excessive alcohol use or tobacco in any forms. I was going to tell you about Rebecca. Rebecca was a patient that I had many years ago. None of you know her. She was 55 years old then, 350 pounds, and 5'1". She was from New York City. When she came, she couldn't walk across her hospital room without chest pain. She was on 20 medications, and her pain wasn't controlled at that point. She had too many risk factors to have cardiac bypass surgery, including high blood pressure and diabetes. This was her medical plan when she arrived, and she came inpatient first. We did juicing for 5 days of mainly vegetables. Then she could eat all the raw vegetables that she wanted, and several fruits were included. After a week, she could have some whole grains once a day. And there's a plant-based diet that was outlined for her, and it had no free oils. She did have like avocado and olives and other omega-3 fatty acids. These were based on Dr. Esselstyn's book, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. This is a very interesting read. They also have seminars that you can go to. Well, we have natural remedies. All food in as natural state as possible is the best for our body. It was the original diet given in Eden. No sugar and food cooked. The food was either cooked, baked, boiled, or stir-fried. Her biggest meal was breakfast, then a medium-sized lunch and a light supper. She drank just pure water and herbal teas because fruit juice can spike the blood sugar, and it also is many times calories that are, if you are trying to lose weight, you don't want those calories or concentrated fruit sugars. If you can't stand drinking pure water, you can put a little lemon juice in it, or the herbal teas are really, I think, very delicious. Walking was part of her program, and like I said, when she came, she couldn't even walk across her hospital room. But at least 4 times a day, she would walk as far as she could, slowly at first, and she would rest if she started to feel unusual in any way. And we also had the cardiac monitor on at all times. Each day, she would try to walk a little further and more times throughout the day. And exercise was a very important part of her program. She did stretching exercises frequently during the day, and we gave her a rocking chair that she could rock in. And that is good exercise if you can't walk a lot. She also attended cardiac rehab support group 3 times a week. And she started praying for the first time in her life and asked for help with appetite control. At the end of her 6-month program, she had lost 200 pounds, and she could walk up a very small mountain that we had behind the rehab center without chest pain. And she was almost the most thrilled that she only was on one medication, because the other medications were so expensive. Now, not everybody has the same success as Rebecca, but if you have trouble doing things without support, it is best to possibly do an inpatient program. Miracles will happen when we follow God's plan as given in the Bible. Start the day praying for health and help and reading scripture. Do stretching exercises and walking first thing in the morning, because throughout the day you'll burn more calories and your metabolism speeds up. You'll actually think better because there'll be more oxygen to the brain and to the muscles. And increase the exercise amount for a daily total of at least 30 minutes as you can tolerate. And always talk with your doctor before doing any exercise other than walking. If you feel any discomfort in the chest, back, arms, neck, you would want to stop and take a real rest before starting again. Deep breathing for 5 to 10 times, several times a day, especially if you're stressed. Deep breathing increases the oxygen supply to the heart, lungs, brain, and the rest of the body, and soothes the nerves. And if any of you have ever experienced severe pain, deep breathing can actually help that by carrying oxygen to the muscles and nerves. Spend 20 to 30 minutes outside, because we all need to get sunshine, which increases our vitamin D absorption to help us resist disease. And especially now with COVID-19 happening, we need vitamin D, vitamin D3. And nutrition. We want to eat a plant-based diet with a variety of vegetables, fruits, and whole grains in as natural state as possible, which would mean maybe just baking or just barely cooking things, except your grains. Don't add a lot of salt to the things that you're cooking. Salt increases swelling, which makes it harder for your heart to work because it has to process all the fluid that's going through. And get in the habit of reading labels of any pre-prepared food that you buy. It's amazing what you can learn. Many times there are high saturated fats and tremendous amounts of sodium, especially like in soups and microwaved dinners that people don't realize. Water is the 90% of our body. Drink pure water mostly. Aim for 6 to 8 8-ounce glasses, unless you have a fluid restriction given to you by a doctor. Spend time with supportive friends, family, or a support group. And now we have to do most things online or on the telephone, but it is worth it. Stress and the hormones that stress produces is responsible for a lot of high blood pressure and heart stress. If you can get in the habit of journaling your feelings daily, or talking with a counselor or supportive people about the things that you're stressed out and your concerns. And that will also help you sleep 7 to 9 hours every day. Listen to uplifting music, radio or television programs. And check your blood pressure every week or daily if you have high blood pressure. Check your weight every week or daily if you have heart disease or fluid retention. And if you gain more than 2 to 3 pounds, make sure you do report it to your healthcare provider. Well, remember, all of these things are given to us by God in the original diet in Eden. And God's desire for you and me is in 3 John 2. Beloved, I wish above all things that you would prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. And I'm so thankful that the Lord has blessed me now with good health. We just need to keep choosing to persist in practicing the good health habits. Sometimes it's easy to slip back into old habits, but the Lord will give us that strength, and there are people that will help encourage us. And if you lose your health, you lose everything sometimes. So have a wonderful time in your journey, in your life. We're going to now hear Patrick Dower. He's going to share his story. He is a local businessman, happily married, and a father of 3 lovely children. And he has a good story to tell. Patrick?
Thank you, Donna. Thank you very much. Very good presentation. I'm going to tell you my story. I'll tell you at the beginning of this story, I am not a doctor. For the most of my life, I've enjoyed very good health. I was involved in a lot of athletics, a lot of sports when I was younger. I was a distance runner. I ran over 3,000 miles while I was in high school. Just almost never, ever got sick. And so it was a surprise to me when I went to a health seminar. I thought I was just going to be supportive of my local church, actually, but I went to an Adventist health fair back in early 2017. And
it's a health thing that Tracy has at her church.
Somebody's phone is on. Yeah. Okay, thank you. But I went through some of the different stages that they had there. They were checking your different things. They had a massage chair. They had people showing you how to eat healthy and cook healthy. And one of the stations was on blood pressure. And this individual got very, very concerned. And she said, you go to your happy place and you relax. We're going to redo this test. And we redid the test, and I just looked at the numbers, and I was really, it was very sobering. She said, you need to see the doctor. You need to go see a doctor. You've got an issue here. And we all knew that I have young children. And so I was very motivated to deal with this, but I did have significant numbers. As most of you know, if you try to make an appointment with your doctor, it takes a while to get into a doctor. And it was about a month before I could go see a doctor. But I didn't wait. I did make a doctor's appointment, but I immediately started studying. I immediately started changing my lifestyle. There were certain things that I knew I could do. I understood it was going to be probably an uphill battle to overcome this. You're thinking about softening your arteries, right? I mean, for all I know, I mean, that's, and so I changed my diet significantly. I had been sort of a vegetarian before, but I became very, very careful about eating a plant-based diet. I started doing a lot of juicing. I made some mistakes. I mean, there was a lot I didn't know, really. I ate a lot of smoothies. I had some friends that were doing intermittent fasting with some good results. I did some of that. I wasn't trying to lose weight. Again, I was just trying to be very, very healthy. But I was doing some fasting. I was drinking a lot of water. I started doing mild exercise, mostly walking, which is fine. Finally got into the doctor, and he couldn't find that I had high blood pressure. He ran a lot of blood tests. My cholesterol was good. They did they call it a metabolic panel. My blood sugar was good. No problems, but this, he said, let's just be safe. By then I had kept a chart, by the way, checking my blood pressure. I don't recommend this, but I was checking it twice a day, actually. I guess that's a little extreme. But he said, let's just put you on a mild amount of medication here. And I said, what do you think? I mean, do you think that if I've changed my lifestyle in the last 30 days waiting to see you? I mean, what do you think? Do you think I've got a good chance of getting off medication and not having to be on medication? And he said, very honestly, he was very thoughtful. He said, once you start on this, he said, people don't get off of this kind of medication. It's pretty much going to be a part of your life. Me being me, I kind of took that as a bit of a challenge, actually, but I was trying to be realistic as well. And I do have young children. And so I was, like I said before, I was very, very motivated. This story that I'm telling you involves a lot of personal homework, but I'll tell you that as I looked at my medical records prior to this presentation, I met with my general practitioner 3 times. I had 2 portomedic exams for life insurance, which I'll come back to in a minute, which were complete blood panels. And I ended up going to a specialist. I also went to a chiropractor, mainly because I had had an issue that prevented me from exercising as much as I'd like to. And that was helpful. But I'll say this, as time went on, I did enjoy, I started liking foods that I didn't like as much before. I liked eating raw fruit and of course raw nuts and a lot of raw vegetables or just lightly steamed vegetables. And I didn't miss the foods that I thought I was going to miss so much. I mean, my taste changed. When my kids complain about food, I tell them, don't worry about it. Your taste buds will change in 30 days and it'll be okay, you know. And I had to start practicing what I was preaching, so to speak, right? So I was, my taste buds were changing, and I got to where I really enjoyed a plant-based diet. I ran into a little bit of a hiccup I didn't expect. I applied for life insurance, and this is something that I've worked with for about 16 years, and I got a result that I had not expected, and that was permanent rejection. There was an indicator on one of the blood tests that was not related to blood pressure, but it was an indicator, enough of an indicator of cancer that this insurance company was not going to insure me, which was really something. I continued with my diet and exercise regimen, and of course, again, it took a while to get in to see a specialist. By the time I saw a specialist, he did give me a clean bill of health, and I thank God for that. I eventually went back and redid the exam for life insurance. And let me just give you one little tidbit here. I've only seen that result given to someone once in the last 16 years, and I'm talking about, I don't know, thousands of policies that I've worked with people. And that individual is not alive. They died of cancer. And so I was, you know, not taking this lightly. But I did reapply for life insurance, and I was given the very best rating that you could get, and that was preferred best. So again, another reason to be grateful to God, to be thankful for His blessings. When you go through these kind of exams for insurance, you do a complete blood panel. It's fairly thorough, and they were, of course, they take your blood pressure and they look at all of your blood pressure readings and all your blood pressure histories. And my numbers were really, really good. So I look at this this journey. Again, I'm not a medical person. I'm looking at the timelines here, and it's from the initial wake-up call. I'm looking at probably about, you know, 1.5 to 2 years at the most. So it took a while, but I would say that, as Miss Donna referred to earlier, I would much rather be dealing with this on a preventative basis rather than trying to recuperate from something severe, like a heart attack or a stroke. And I'm totally okay with this being my lifestyle going forward. I actually feel very, very good. I do a 5K every year. I don't train for it necessarily outside of anything else that I do. I don't have any problem with it. Um, and I continue to enjoy good health. The big difference now is that I'm more acutely aware of the things that I need to do to maintain that health. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to someone who is much more versed in the technical aspects of this, you might say, and that is Dr. John Anderson. And I think you'll enjoy what he has to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. I think the host has to unmute me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, very good. Okay. Well, I really appreciate what Nurse Donna Harley had to say. And indeed, everything that she has shared with you is scientifically validated and proven. This type of what many people call alternative methods of reversing heart disease is really something that anyone can do and has predicted results. It's not easy to follow these types of approaches. And many times people want to just do what 99% of the physicians advise, and that is patients with advanced heart disease are sent over for heart surgery, which is when I meet the patients. I'm just going to try to upload my presentation for this talk. And that's easier said than done right now, I'm finding, because I'm pushing on share screen and my file doesn't show up, which is no one's fault but mine. But give me a minute and I'll try to find this. It's not giving me the options that I need.
And why Dr. Anderson is looking for that.
Maybe somebody can give me some technical help.
Yeah, Jonathan,
Non-surgical technical help, because I've got it right here, but how to get it on your Zoom screen when I...
Are you using a computer or an iPad?
I'm using my computer, my laptop.
All right.
And my presentation is on my desktop.
Do you see the share screen button? It's a green button.
Yeah, I've been pushing it for the last 5 minutes.
And nothing happens?
Well, yeah, a lot of things happen here, but it's not showing me the files that...
Is the file open? If you open the file, maybe it'll show on your screen. We're all having fun learning to use Zoom and every other conferencing tool these days, so don't feel bad.
Oh, no, I certainly don't. No way am I going to feel bad, but I don't want to waste your time.
Another option is you can share your entire screen instead of just the file.
Okay, yeah, walk me through that.
Well, if you just hit the share screen, it should come up with an option where you can choose if you want to share your screen or from a program.
Oh, here, I've got it. We're good. I appreciate that advice because I didn't have it open, and I think
there you go. Yeah, just open it up. And yeah. Patrick wanted to mention one more thing. Can you unmute Patrick for a minute? He just wanted, while he's bringing up his presentation, mention one more comment about his medications. but I see he's muted. There we go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, go ahead, Patrick. And then
Okay.
we'll go to Dr. Anderson.
Sorry, Doc. I was just, I just
No problem.
remembered something I thought was important, and I just thought I'd mention this while you were working with your technology there. The same doctor that said to me, once you start on this medication, you're not going to get off of it. You're going to be on this for the rest of your life. And I get a physical from him every year, and the follow-up physical. He told me, he said, you know something, I'm not the kind of doctor that just prescribes medicine just to be prescribing medicine. He said, I don't think you need to be on this anymore. So I praise God for that. That's all.
Excellent. It's always enjoyable to find out when many times we as physicians make definitive statements, we can be shown to be wrong by the human body. So anyway, just 10 slides here, just to kind of touch on some of the issues and reinforce what Nurse Donna Harley has said. We want to actually go through some of the review of risk factors and how people can, each one of you can take control of your heart disease risk. Too many of Americans are thinking that I need healthcare coverage and healthcare insurance, so therefore I can be healthy, and the two don't have anything to do with each other. Taking the initiative and managing lifestyle is what's really important. So the scenario for heart disease, now heart disease is a very broad term, so we don't want to get too stuck with that term, but we're talking about heart disease, but it's coronary heart disease. These are the arteries that lie on the surface of the heart muscle. And those arteries can become blocked up at their proximal extent, or if you're diabetic and very unfortunate, throughout the whole length of the coronary artery. So any endothelial cell lining of the coronary arteries can become injured, and in the healing process develop blockages of the coronary artery, and then obstructing the blood flow to the heart muscle, and then that leads to heart attack and damage. Now, there's heart attacks, then there's heart attacks. There's extremely mild, nothing of major consequence, just a warning sign, or there can be a massive heart attack with a significant severe loss of heart muscle. So just in the process of managing a heart risk, the etiology, number one, it's an inflammatory process. It's not a passive process, it's inflammatory. Now that can be related to personality, state of mind, stress. Notice I haven't even discussed diet and exercise, but all of these factors are important, diet and exercise as well. So it requires multiple factors to create this gradual narrowing process in the lining of these small coronary arteries, about the size of a lead pencil, not the pencil, but the lead in the pencil. So you start narrowing the lumen, then you can see how the heart muscle will start to be in jeopardy, and people will either have chest pain, or unfortunately, some people have no chest pain. Many diabetics don't even have chest pain at all. And unfortunately, about 250,000 people a year in the United States, their first symptom of heart disease is sudden death. That's a tragedy. That's a good-sized town coming off the map every year. So again, back to the etiology here. Number two, the inflammatory injury to the endothelium can be repaired with the plaque and the calcium. And again, that's what this picture is showing here. I don't know if my arrow is showing up, but it shows up for my computer. And then number three, if you're a diabetic, you're specifically worse off, at least if you're not managing your diabetes well, because the disease can occur diffusely in the coronary arteries. And again, the damage to the heart muscle can lead to impairment in the heart function and then lead to heart failure. No one wants to be there. So atherosclerosis, which is the narrowing of the coronary arteries, has multiple factors causing it. Hyperglycemia, diabetes, obesity, hypertension, smoking, sedentary lifestyle, Bad attitude. I'm just joking. That can be a negative attitude that many people fight. Age is a factor. So, 4 ideas that I wanted to share with you, again, to reinforce what Nurse Donna Harley has outlined for you so very nicely. And that is, diet and exercise is key. If you're going to change your lifestyle to try to reduce your heart disease. Know and control the risk factors that have been discussed. And again, they're right here: diabetes, obesity, hypertension, smoking. There are about 5 or 6 major risk factors. Smoking being an enormous risk factor for men and women. Third interesting point I wanted to just briefly touch on was the importance of managing your stress and your rest. And fourth, because it's such a strong factor, eliminate smoking completely. No standoff, no compromise. It has to be eliminated completely. Otherwise, you really don't even have a fighting chance of conquering heart disease without seeing professionals like myself. So again, briefly on diet. Nurse Donna Harley mentioned about plant oils. Even the plant oils can injure endothelial cells. Diet, fried foods, that also can create injury to endothelial cells through the fatty amounts of lipids in the bloodstream. Dairy intake also injures endothelial cells. And animal fat and protein. These are all ways of taking in an inflammatory diet. So if you want to reverse heart disease or prevent heart disease, you want to make sure you're not taking a diet that leads to inflammation. So the optimal balance is a good anabolic metabolism and lifestyle factors that lead to longevity. That would be for another lecture. Again, knowing and controlling your risk factors. Doctors do not control your risk factors. Certainly heart surgeons don't, but cardiologists don't. Primary care doctors don't. We individuals are the ones who manage our risk factors. So ideal body weight, I listed as the first factor here. Weight loss is an important thing, especially for Americans. Again, diet, the type of diet's important. Addressing psychosocial stressors, sleep hygiene, other barriers that prevent people from controlling their weight loss plan. It's a multifactorial, as you can see. Controlling your blood pressure, by all means, people who have a very high BMI, meaning they're not in an ideal body weight, they're going to have a much higher incidence of hypertension. So these factors are all interdependent with each other, and that's why I've listed them together. So a healthy low sodium diet and exercise are essential. If you have not adequate sleep, less than 6 hours of sleep a night, you're going to be more likely to have high blood pressure, or at least poor quality of sleep, again, is associated with high blood pressure. Diabetes control, it's astonishing to see that over and over and over again, diabetics on insulin, when placed on a very common sense but very strict plant-based diet, they have no problem controlling their diabetes at all. And some, not all, but some can come off of many of their medications under the supervision of a physician or a nurse like Donna Harley. So proper blood glucose glycemic control is key. It's very key. I would say that next to smoking, diabetes is probably one of the greatest contributors for severe heart disease in America. So proper control of blood glucose is very important. And as the second sentence there indicates, there are many environmental factors, psychosocial factors, depression, self, stress. All of these things are interrelated to helping you manage these risk factors. Blood lipid control. controlling the amount of fat in our diet is important. Now, many fats are very good and healthy for us. It's important to know that saturated fat, especially saturated fat from animal sources, is your enemy when it comes to heart disease. It is not your friend under any circumstances. And then finally, physical activity. Again, one of the greatest deficiencies that we all face. And I agree with Nurse Donna Harley that daily physical activity is essential in reversing heart disease. Advice is at least 3 times a week, 30 to 45 minutes of moderate exertion is important. I would submit that that's just getting started. It's important to do this daily. So, stress and rest. Most people don't think of stress and rest. People talk about stress as being a cause for heart disease, but it's a very nebulous term. But there are neuroendocrine factors based on a lifestyle of stress, and psychological and social factors that can lead to an imbalanced work-life experience and upset your chances of longevity. There's also circadian rhythm factors. Again, that's rest and sleep. And then I'm going to add in here a very important biblical lifestyle factor that cannot be ignored. And that is our God-given mandate. It's for our best interest of having 24 hours of rest every 7 days. This is part of the cornerstone of God's advice on how we can have optimal longevity and avoid this central picture here of progressive narrowing of blood vessels as we age. The fourth factor, again, eliminate smoking. I've listed that. Any prevention discussion can mix things in different ways. They're not 4 risk factors. There's 4 emphases that I wanted to share. The final one is, I think, the most important, and that is smoking risk. Smokers have nearly a double the chance of getting a heart attack compared to someone who does not smoke. And then a smoker who has a heart attack has their chance of suddenly dying is 5 times more likely than non-smokers. That's pretty serious. The leading preventable cause of disease and deaths in this world is smoking. That's a Surgeon General's statement I put in in quotations, pardon me. Cigarette smoking is an independent risk factor for heart disease, and that's why I'm emphasizing it here as a 4th factor. Cigarette smoking, this 4th bullet here, cigarette smoking is the most important risk factor for young men and women. It produces a greater relative risk in people under the age of 50 than those over 50. And then the final factor concerning young women at high risk. Young women, we know that oral contraceptives places women at some greater risk of having some problems with blood clotting. But those women on oral contraceptives, if they smoke, there is a very great increase in their risk for coronary disease than women taking oral contraceptives who do not smoke. So smoking is really a compounder of risk superimposed on people with other risk factors. And again, I'm just emphasizing here the point number 1 of this earlier slide, twice the risk of heart attack if you're smoking compared to those who don't. And this is from a long-standing medical journal many years ago, showing roughly twice the incidence of cardiovascular disease of smokers versus non-smokers in any age group that you want to categorize. Those less than 35, those 35 to 44, and then those over 45. It's consistently a major problem. So in summary, you do, in my humble opinion, all of us need to be part of a health partner program. That's a term that I'm just throwing out there right now. These personal lifestyle factors, diet and exercise, knowing and how to control your own risk factors, specifically addressing stress and rest, and not allowing any smoking in your life. These 4 ways of looking at your personal lifestyle factors are very important. And if they're very rigidly addressed and carefully addressed, don't have to be rigid, but very diligent, as Patrick has outlined in his experience, then you can be successful. And I would suggest Patrick probably had a very able health partner in his wife to encourage him. Everyone needs a health partner to be part of a health partner program to be successful in managing and taking control of your heart disease risk. So with that, I'll end and open to any questions that Tracy, if you want to host these questions, I'm sure there'll be other questions from for Nurse Harley and for Patrick as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And for everybody, there is a chat button at the bottom of your screen. We do have everybody muted, but there is a chat button. If you have some questions, please hit the chat button. You can type them in and we will look at those. You can reach out to us afterwards if you want. If you have questions, concerns, and again, hopefully when we get live, you guys can come see us live and ask a lot of questions as well. And, you know, one of the things you mentioned, you know, having a support system, I think is one of the most important things that we all can have, you know, and just an idea, because we were going to kick this off with the Forks Over Knives movie, but if you're on Facebook and you're using social media, join the Forks Over Knives group on Facebook. I joined maybe 4 months ago, and instead of my feed being full of, you know, things that just depress me and bad news, it's now full of people talking about their transformations, about their weight loss, their disease reversion, you know, prevention, recipes, how to make healthy foods. They share what foods they're making. And my feed is now totally full, and it's a very positive group. And nobody really is negative. It's very supportive. So find a group like that online. Obviously, family and friends, if you can find someone to, you know, share recipes, share exercising, keep each other accountable, it makes it so much more fun to go through this journey with somebody than to try and do it on your own. And don't get discouraged. You know, it is a journey, and start small. You know, you don't have to change your diet completely overnight. If you're not used to eating vegetarian or vegan foods, just try one thing a day. Start with maybe a breakfast, you know, with oatmeal and fruit, and then move on to maybe a few healthy lunch options, and then move on to a few dinner options. Just start integrating it slowly. Don't get discouraged. Reach out. You know, there's so many things online now to give you recipe help. We are going to be providing cooking schools once we get live to help you, because I always find it's easier to see somebody making something than to just try it on my own. So those are just a few ideas I have for that. And in lieu of that, for those that got a meal delivered today, we made these wonderful tofu walnut meatballs. And we had a wonderful family, the Trigos. Many of you guys know their daughter actually put a video together for us, so you can watch them making the tofu meatballs. So we are going to go ahead and play that video so you guys can kind of watch the process, and then I'll talk a little bit at the end. Wow, that made me hungry. So what you saw there again was the meatballs, the tofu walnut meatballs, just a couple of things that you saw there. Um, Tofu, if you've never bought tofu before, you can usually find in the health section of the store. You can ask someone if you have a hard time finding it. But you notice she just broke up the tofu in a blender, added, we call it Bragg's aminos, but it's also soy sauce. But Bragg's is just the healthier version without all the salt and the sodium in it. I personally like to use Bragg's for everything, and they sell it at the local Walmart, and a little bit of water. And you saw it made that creamy mixture. And then all they did was pour that into all the breadcrumbs and oats and all the seasonings, and stirred it together. So with the breadcrumbs, I know I was asking Darlene, which a lot of these are Darlene Anderson's recipes, and her team is the one that made all this delicious food today. And the soft breadcrumbs, you can just put fresh bread you have in the food processor. Just whirl it around a few times and it makes wonderful breadcrumbs. So, you know, the other thing that I think we gave everybody with the recipe is a barbecue sauce. I think they used a homemade barbecue sauce. But if you don't have the time, like me, sometimes I'll just get a jar of barbecue sauce and add apricot preserves, which is just really a mixture of those two things. So don't get overwhelmed if you saw our list of ingredients in the barbecue sauce and you just want a simple way to do it, you can do it that way as well. And if you don't have some of the seasonings, I would say don't worry about it. Use what you have, seasonings one way or the other. Sometimes I don't have the ones it calls for in my cabinet. I find it usually turns out just as good if I throw in some seasonings that I like. So that's what I would say about the cooking, and we can't wait to get live with you guys and do more, you know, hands-on demonstrations in the kitchen. Before we go, I wanted to bring up a couple of things. Feel free to invite friends to this. Our next session is going to be June 28th. So the last Sunday of the month. They'll always be at 7 o'clock. So, and I think this Zoom link will probably be the same one that we'll use throughout the year. So every last Sunday of the month, 7 o'clock, you can invite friends, neighbors, family, anybody who wants to come on. We will have Dr. Donna back next time, and she's a kidney expert. So she'll be talking about kidney care, and other health topics as we kind of go on. And we'd love to hear from you guys, you know, what topics you're interested in, and we'll try and add them to the lineup. And if you're looking for a great place to find fruits and vegetables, I know I've been blessed by our local John Henry, you know, store there right across from the cafe, right in Newmarket. They've started to carry wonderful fruits and vegetables that they're bringing in from all over. You can even get a produce box for $20 a week. You can pick it up. It's full of potatoes and squash and tomatoes and cantaloupes, watermelon, honey, tea. I mean, there's really great options there. So definitely check that out, because I know sometimes the fruits and vegetables that I find in the store, you know, especially now, is a little difficult, and he is supplied with really great local fruits and vegetables. And the other thing is, to join our group, there's 2 places where you can find out what we have coming up. You can go on the Newmarket Seventh-day Adventist website. We have our own page, and we also keep all the recordings there. So we've done about 6 sessions so far, and you can go back and listen to some of the other sessions that we've done. And the website, I'm looking for where I wrote, I think it's newmarketadventist.org. So you can go on there, look for Dining with the Doctors, and all the information will be there. And the other place, I'm going to share my screen for a minute, because I will place this up so you guys can actually see it. Well, I thought I could. All right, I'm going to give you the number, because I don't think I can share that right now. But if you want to text the word doctor to 540-340-5775, we'll put you on our texting list. So if you're somebody who likes to get a text message just to remind you that it's coming up, definitely grab a pen and write down this number. I'll give it to you again. It's 540-340-5775. And just go into your phone, type the word doctor to that phone number, and you'll be automatically added to all of our updates via text. So I don't, let's see, do we have anything in the chat box? Jonathan. Oh, and Miss Anderson added that we can find our tofu in the produce section at Walmart. So if you're at Walmart, it's usually at the end of the refrigerator that holds the produce. The complete recipe for the meatballs and barbecue sauce, if you didn't have a meal delivered, we will go ahead and put that on the website. So we will share that full recipe. We'll have that on the website. And if you are on this and you want to reach out to me directly, if you're not sure where to find it there, feel free to reach out to me directly as well. And thank you. Mauricio just put the actual newmarketadventist.org website in the chat room. So for anybody who wants to go to the chat room, you can click that link and it will automatically take you to our page where we have all the recordings, and we'll also put the recipes there. So I really appreciate your time. I can't believe it's 8:01. So we pretty much did this in an hour with 1 minute to spare. So we look forward to seeing everybody on June 28th. I hope you have a great rest of your Memorial weekend. And thanks so much for spending an hour with us tonight. Did I miss anything from anybody else on the panel that you wanted to say? Thank you to Donna, Dr. Anderson, Patrick, and the Trigos, and Anderson, Darlene, and your team that made all the wonderful food today. We really appreciate the whole team and all the delivery drivers tonight. So hope you guys have a great weekend.